Hi, I'm Hive. I'm not sure if any of you actually needed a tutorial on how to draw wet skin. I really hope at least one person did. Otherwise, I have no idea why I made this video. But if you do, I will show you how to turn this into this, and this using gradient maps. And if you want a chance to get a free sticker pack from me featuring your own character, subscribe to my Telegram channel Tibia Art, and I'll pick one random subscriber. I post my art, commission slots, tutorial, and video announcement there. Link down below. So let's start with the basics. Droplets. On a multiply layer, draw a dark droplet and some streaks coming from it. Add a little blur inside and slightly around the edges. Then I add some darker midtones and blur those as well. You can add more streaks if you want. Next, on a new normal layer, I pick a light color and add a little bit along the edges. Try to vary the line thickness slightly. Then I add a highlight and blur it from the edges toward the inside. I also add some light to the other parts of the droplet. I usually leave the brightest highlights sharp instead of blurring them. If you're working with something thicker like soap, foam, or slime, I start with one large dark area. Then, on a new layer, I use a slightly lighter tone to draw some chaotic shapes, leaving some ovals and circles in the middle. You can divide them into smaller areas and blur them. Then I add a small bubbles. First, I draw them with a light color, and then I use the eraser to remove parts of the smaller bubbles. All that's left is adding some white highlights to the surface and the bubbles. Now let's go through it using a body as an example. On a multiply layer, I cover everything with shadows and then use the eraser to remove the areas where the light will hit. I blur it afterwards. I have a more detailed video about shading on my channel, if you want to learn more about that. Then I refine the details and add some reflected light. To make the skin look glossy, I create a new layer and add light highlights to the muscles, focusing on the most protruding areas. I also add some lighter reflected light along the edges. After that, on a multiply layer, I draw the droplets just like I showed you earlier. The important thing here is to follow the shape of the surface the water is running down. Think of it like little hills or something like that. For some variety, you can also add larger wet patches here. But while editing the video, I realized that I actually like it better without them. Next, I create a new normal layer and use a light color to add highlights to the droplets. I'm not trying to outline the entire droplet in white. I just add little touches of reflected light along the edges and on the droplet itself. I also have a brush that creates something similar to foam streaks. If I remember correctly, it's actually a default brush in Clip Studio Paint. Now, gradient maps. Right-click your topmost layer, then go to the new correction layer, gradient map, and choose one from the sets. You can also download different gradient maps for free from Clip Studio Assets. Once you've picked the one you like, you can add different effects on new layers above it to bring in a little more color. On overlay or glow layers, I added some lights to the chest and a little bit of pink, and some glowing highlights on top of them. And on a hard light layer, I added a cool toned reflected light on the opposite side from the main light source. You can make it any color you want. It depends on the background and lighting in your artwork. To turn a human into a Black Panther, all you need to do is pick the right gradient map and add some spots on a new multiply layer. And you might ask, what if I want to add a lighter area on the torso, for example? Easy. Just create another gradient map above the main one and set it to the color you want for the belly. In my case, that's white. Then I click on the white part of the gradient map and use the eraser to remove the areas that shouldn't be white. And if you accidentally erase or paint something in the wrong place, just switch to black and fix it. And that's it. These are our final results. Thanks for watching. You can subscribe so you don't miss the new tutorials. See ya!